Hello and welcome to the May update. Just a few things this month that I've been working on to show you, and things that I'm going to be working on in the next few weeks. Any suggestions and comments, please add them at the bottom of this video, and I look forward to reading them. Cheers. Okay, one of the major things I've been doing in the last 6 weeks is ballasting the lower main line. The ballasting previously stopped round about here, but now I've continued it along and it joins all the way around at the mainline station. I've also weathered the track using rail match, sleeper grime, roof dirt, and just to kind of tone down the plasticky sleepers, give the ballast a bit of a weathered look. And the rail sides have also been coated in sleeper grime, as you can see there. I go over the side of the rails quite a few times. I work on about a metre section at a time, and I just go back and forth on the rail sides first, and once that's dry I then go on the outside of the sleepers with a sleeper grime to kind of dull it down a wee bit, and then I go in the centre with the sleeper grime as well, just to take the grey off the ballast. And then the last thing I do is I run a very light, quick roof dirt along the middle between the two rails, just to give it that kind of dirty, grimy, oily look. And that takes a few days just to do everything in a kind of sequence to wait till the paint's dried, etc. And when that's all dried, I clean the heads of the rails with a Pico track rubber, and I've just to vacuum it up now to take all the bits and pieces off, and it'll be ready for trains to run on. I've also fitted these AWS ramps at a distance before the upcoming signal. So if I move along the layout, just to kind of see the kind of length of track that I've been ballasting, and we'll come to the corner here, which will have developments in the next few days hopefully. As it goes off to the siding, and what I've kind of employed on the side of the rails is a dark rust colour, as you can see here. Again, rail match. I mixed it with some light rust, dark rust, to give it a lighter use of rail. It's not one that gets used every day, so it's allowed to go slightly rusty, and that falls all the way around. And I've applied the same sleeper grime roof dirt to the sleepers. And obviously you've got your orange tubing there to carry the cables through from the trunking going through the tracks, and that's also picked up a lot of weathering. As I move round, to excuse the mess here, I'm still tidying up after the painting. If you move round to the siding here, I've used the same rust, and what I've not done here is I've not cleaned the tops of the rails for a good section of it. Okay, I've kept them rusty, because what I'm going to do with this, there's where I've started cleaning them there. What I'm going to do with this section, I'm going to make it overgrown and unused, especially near the end where the buffer stop will be. It'll be kind of overgrown, like it's not seen a bit of action in quite some time. So it just kind of varies the look of the layout a wee bit with different coloured rails. What I did actually was I painted the sides with sleeper grime, just like any other rail, and then I went over it with the rust and gave it varying degrees of density. So there's bits that are slightly rustier than others, as would be the case depending on the use of the track. And I put some oily kind of residue down the middle, like units have been sitting there. I might put some more on as well, quite heavily done, where maybe a DMU's been sitting, or a local. The last bit really is back round to the road bridge at the station there. I'll talk about this area in a minute. Okay, this short clip is really about the signalling, or the re-signalling of the outer lower main line. Previously I had sensors in the track from the Heathcote boards, and when the train branched off left or right, it would trigger the sensor. But what I'm changing it to now is I've just got the single sensor just after the signal, and it's going to allow it to change just like it did before, but I'm using the mass sequencer here, so that's the last one in the chain, as opposed to the second one in the chain at the moment. It sounds complicated, it's not. I'm just changing one of the boards underneath for another board somewhere else. So this will be the last signal in the 3, and that'll have the mass sequencer. So as I've said in my previous videos, the mass sequencer automatically will go through the sequence once it's been triggered, from green to red, and then to yellow, and then back to green. It just reduces the number of sensors I need. I don't need a pair there, I only need one there, and I'm using the extended wire versions, so I've got a bit of give. I don't have to put the board right underneath the hole. I can have it, you know, underneath here for example, and feed the wires with the sensors into it. I know this has been kind of covered in my previous videos with signalling, but you know, this is just to simplify things for me, and it's not going to really change the running of it, it's just going to make it neater underneath the baseboard. Okay, the last thing I'm really working on in this update is the road ramp and main road going across the bridge. What I'm doing here is I've added pavements in, and they match up with the pavements already at the station car park. They will come up to the top of the ramp, and I've got a slight coat around there for the curb, and they all go along to here on both sides. Now this will be obviously a main road with the lines down the middle and things like that. What I've done here is I've cut the pavement short. There's the join just now where the bridge meets the main upper. I've not fixed down yet, so I can't really finish that bit just now. The pavement stops short because I have the barriers here, and in here will be the barrier housing, and this will be a gravelled area, and it will sit in there, and I'll go over these barriers in a minute. That will sit in there, and there will one at each side, and each side of the actual barrier will be a small fence there, and at the other side just to prevent people getting in the way of the mechanism, so, you know, to keep the passengers and pedestrians away from it. And the one each side, and obviously the same at the other side there. The pavement's not down there just now, it's just getting made just now, and I'm going to have the same kind of square curbstone kind of setup. How did I make that? Well, it's 2mm by 2mm plastic card strips sprayed in grey primer and glued down. It just kind of gives that edge. Now, one reason for doing that, apart from just to kind of contain the gravel, was when I put the scenic cement or the PVA water down there, I don't want it to leak into the pavement because card, remember, so I've just kind of sealed it. That'll prevent a kind of barrier. I did the same with my making a scene, which is up at the flats last summer. I just kind of put a curbstone in, if you like, just to kind of seal it. So that'll get gravelled. Now a fence each side of this mechanism. I think I've got one lying around somewhere. Here we go. There. That's etched brass, and that'll just be fixed there, and at either side. So there'll be maybe, you know, 8 sections of this. I've just used photographs of what you know, ones that are out there in real life to kind of get an idea of what they look like. There will be a ramp here, a plastic card ramp, which I hope to get the same colour as the tarmac, and then it will cross in the usual style, and a slight ramp down the other side again, and then, you know, fencing here, you know, bushes, weeds and all that kind of stuff that grows at the side of the line, just like here. So I'll kind of blend it all in, but this has to be fixed down for me to do all that, and I need to get all this done first with the girder side. So it's kind of, there's 50 jobs, if you like, and I can't just do them in an order of 1 to 50. I've kind of got to jump around a wee bit for reasons of construction and stuff. I've also got crossing lights that I'll be putting in here that work with sound. Again, I've got to consider the wiring for that, so again I can't fix this down until I've wired them all in, and then I can complete the scenic area with the ramps and stuff, and that will be coming in my next update, hopefully, if I progress with that like I hope to. So that's it just now. It's been sitting really as a black painted road surface for, you know, a good 2 years now, but now that I've got the upper section in place and all the ballasting on the lower section, I can start to kind of shuffle round a wee bit, and then that allows me to focus on this area here, which I've always got ideas about, you know, in this autumn and winter time, and continue round to the TMD. But there we go, there's my pavement. Got my side of the curb and that round the curve there, so there's no exposed card, and it's all fixed down. These pavements are scale scenes. The tarmac is Woodland Scenics tarmac, and what I've done is I've painted it in that, and it comes up quite a kind of grey black, and then I've watered it down. I've sanded it with a bit of sandpaper or wet and dry paper to give it a kind of grey effect, and then a very light wash of the black tarmac again. It isn't black. It might look black for those who've used it or do have it on their layout. It's not really black. The camera's kind of picking it up a bit darker than it actually is. I know people criticise, oh, your tarmac's never black. That's correct, but it turns out a wee bit darker on the camera than it is in real life. And the pavement all fits in nicely there with the side of the girder. And I hope to have some train spotters and stuff on top of the bridge in due course. I've got all my road markings ready to go down as well. So I'll have 4 barriers, 4 sets of lights, flashing red and light with an amber, and there'll be a siren. I'll be operating these manually. I'm not having sensors on the track, because you've got, this is an express models kit I'm using for the lights and stuff, and you need a magnet on the bottom of every train to trigger the reed switch to trigger the lights and the siren. I'm just going to operate it with an on-off button switches. Purely because I don't want the siren going off and on, off and on, off and on as the trains go round. I want more control of it, so I'm just going to have it manually controlled. Just a couple of wee additions for the TMD area. Picked up these Hornby skips, all kind of scratched and weathered looking. They weren't too bad. They'll go in some place in the TMD or other places in the layout. And I also got these little push forklift trolleys, painted 2 orange and 1 yellow. These are from 10 Commandments. They're quite cool actually. I've angled the handle on one of them like it's been pulled, and more upright ones that, you know, maybe aren't getting operated. Okay, the final bit I'm going to show you in this video is the barrier mechanism. These are Pico products, and I was going to use this, but I wanted to put lights in it, and I'd have to drill out the holes, and there'd be wires in the back, and this bit got in the way of the wires and the LEDs, and it's pretty thin, and it's going to look awful. It's got awful messy from the back. Plus, it's got this Pico made in England kind of hollowed out section, which just didn't sit well with me. So I had to ditch that idea and make up my own. This is made of plastic card, glued. I think it's 3.5mm. Bits of plastic card glued together, cut, filed and drilled, and as you can see there's kind of a brass rod in there, and that's glued in place, and it allows the barrier to pivot up and down on the bit of brass, and it doesn't go past the horizontal because I've kind of shaped the sides so that the barrier digs into it, just like this one, so it doesn't go down any further than it has to, and it goes up to, you know, the correct angle. I just painted it in primer, let it harden, and the barrier will mostly be in that position, but if it can go up and down quite freely. So they'll get glued in the areas here, like such, both sides of the rails, and then you'll have the barrier lights, you know, sitting in front of them, just like as the prototype, with the wires fed underneath, flashing the red and the amber. So that's the mechanism that I've said to go with, and we've got a scratch building there, and decided not to bother with these. Okay, that's really all I've got for this layout. There will be a model of the month, a long awaited, much anticipated model of the month. The reason I couldn't do it back in April as I'd hoped is I was ballasting and weathering. I didn't want dust and spray paint, etc., getting into this wonderful new model that a few of you have got already by watching some of your videos. So hopefully it will grace Dean Park in the next few weeks, and I look forward to that very much. Any comments, suggestions, as always, I look forward to reading them, and I hope to see you again soon for the next update. Bye just now.